Hello and welcome to another edition of the Tigers Down Under. I'm your host, Alex, and with me I have Dan again. How are you, Dan?
Yeah, look, pretty good. I think I was a little less enthusiastic, or maybe a little more critical last week when I was on, and we sort of, in a sense, set down a gauntlet or set the challenge for what we would accept, come this time, and happily, luckily, the players have listened to us, clearly responded to the challenge, lifted, in the moment, and we've come away with 6 points, 6 very important points. At this point in the season, I think we risked sort of. I know it's still early days, but slipping into the trailing pack, slipping into the pack away from those ones that are right on the cusp, fighting it out for those top 6 spots, which I think, based on performances for the most part, is probably where we should be seeing ourselves.
Yeah, I mean, we've said before, but what a difference a week can make in football. When you go from last week, we were sitting there as 1 win in 7 games and sort of thinking, it's not panic stations. We're not getting too alarmist, but you sort of think, oh, it's a good stretch of games. You don't want to drop too many of them. You want to keep the performances up. And I think I even talked about, if the results don't come, if the performances start to drop because the players maybe lose faith in the system or whatever it might be. So to pick up the 2 wins and bank the 6 points, I mean, you just have to look at, we'll talk about the Birmingham game first, but the fact that we went into that game with them sitting in 5th or 6th, I think, or just maybe off the playoffs, and they're now sitting down in something like 16th, and they've lost the last 3 games. So you can very quickly get sort of sucked into that bottom quarter of the table if you don't start to turn draws or losses into wins, which thankfully we've managed to do over the last 2 games. And they've been 2 of the. I mean, we looked ahead to sort of that 10-game run, and I mean these would have been 2 of the trickier games in that run. I would hazard to say, Birmingham playing reasonably well. I think they hadn't lost at home all season. Obviously a bit of controversy and difficulties around the manager coming in Wayne Rooney, but still a tough place to go. And I thought actually coming away from it that we could have scored more goals. You think we could have won 3, maybe 4-0. You think of that Twine chance that was essentially an open goal. Philogene had a couple of chances as well. Delap, was it Delap playing Philogene in, or something in that counter attack we had in the second half where we created a lot of good opportunity. And it's the same thing we say every week, right? It's the lack of clinical edge that we have, but at least where sort of as soon as you bank a clean sheet, you only need to score 1 goal to get the 3 points. And look, it was a terrific win.
Yeah, I think it was at the end. It felt like by the time we got through 90 minutes, or it felt like it was a comfortable win, I think, in the end. But I think especially early on, we kind of rode our luck a bit as well, because I think we started really, really brightly, but I think on Birmingham's first counter, they put a really strong chance into our box, which their forward just sort of bounced under his foot or through his legs or whatever, and it was almost there for a tap in, because he got behind Jones and won the ball, and or almost won. If he'd had got a foot to it, it probably would have been 1-0 to Brum about 2 minutes in. So, but yeah, I think generally, we created probably about half a dozen really, really strong quality chances, which I guess, comes to what we have been saying, that again, that lack of clinical edge. But I guess if you can get 2 of you create 6 big chances and you put a couple away, well, that's not too bad really in the end. So I think it seems like we are starting to get the balance. I know it's only 2 games since I was saying there's not something wrong in the midfield. It's not quite balanced, but the big shout in the Preston game about that I did not see coming, that surprised me, a positional switch with that. But I think just generally getting that balance right. I think having 2 wingers and those sorts of things are just starting to work. We're starting to find, I think, the best 11, and I think we've I think Delap's really starting to assert
Oh yeah,
himself as the man to lead the line. Just the directness, the physicality, the pace, the runs in behind. Um, you know that for that first goal was just um, you know some will chalk it up to a mistake from the Birmingham defence, but I think again you got to be in those positions to score them, and he puts himself into a really good position off. I think it was Twine's
yeah. I was
press.
just going to say. I mean, Twine gets a lot of stick, and we've not been too positive on him in recent weeks. So I think when he does something well, he deserves the praise. That pressing to basically cut down the option so that the Birmingham defender had to play it back was great, and that's what really opens up the goal.
Yeah, and I think that combination where Delap is able to come in off the blind side, so that defender isn't even aware that he's coming, to claim that. I mean, it was a shit back pass either way. He put it right in no man's land, which is perfect for us. But yeah, I think that was it is showing. I think really I think we all know that there's some raps on Delap, um, and he's got lots of promise and potential, and we're starting. I think consistent football in this loan spell. I think is really we're starting to see his growth and development. And moving at a pretty rapid pace, because I think even over just this season, we've seen the I think a lot of growth in him as a player. So I'm looking forward to the rest of the season because I think he's going to touch wood, stay fit, but become really important. I think him and Philogene we've seen in their under 21s for England forming a really deadly partnership. So and I think we're seeing it at club level as well. That those two are becoming hugely influential for us.
Yeah, I think probably during the transfer window, there was a few eyebrows raised at comments around Rafinha's ability to develop young players, and people kind of went, "Oh, well, he hasn't really done that here yet." Because you look at Ebue last season, not really coming on, and probably a couple of others that didn't really show a whole lot. But his work with Delap and Philogene and other players, like as you say, it's so
Even
tangible.
Connolly, because Connolly's
Connolly,
young,
yeah,
young as
Connolly's only
well.
22, which you sort of forget because he's been around for so long. But you're seeing this tangible growth and development in these guys week on week, and Delap's. We say it almost every episode, but Delap's ability to sort of turn his defender and run at the defense and really create that space for guys like Philogene to run into, Lakilo as well, is such a. I don't even know if it's an underrated quality. I think it's a really rated quality because I think he does it so well, and it's such. It's something that opposition, like Ryan Lowe after the Preston game, was praising him as well. Obviously, had him on loan last season there. He's having a terrific loan spell. And I think I said on social media after the game, like, I'd love to be going to Man City in January and saying, all right, how much do you want for him? Because my worry is that, and even then, I think it's going to be a lot. I don't think we'll be able to afford it. But if we don't, come the summer, it's going to be double whatever it would be in January, because at the rate he's improving, I could easily see him hitting double figures, 15 goals for the season sort of thing. And by the end of the season, Premier League clubs could be looking at him. So if nothing else, I think it's a great sign that, coming in, I mean, we're sort of start of November now, so it's still a couple of months away, but coming into the January window, if there is anywhere that we need to strengthen, I think there'll be players sort of sitting up and taking notice that, hey, this is actually a pretty positive environment to walk into, and the development and the sort of the ability I can get out of myself at a club like that, it's going to do wonders for us in the transfer market.
Yeah, I think it's certainly an interesting point on Delap. Yes, they're gonna probably want they're gonna try and squeeze him for as much as he's worth, but I think also they're probably going to be willing because I think he's great for us at the moment, and he's still very young. But is he going to? Do they see him as the guy who's going to be their number one? Or their number 9 in 3 years, time? Are they willing to, or are they?
Oh, look, I mean, maybe like if Haaland goes off to Madrid and they go, this kid's got the same sort of attributes, maybe they do.
Possibly. I just, it feels a little bit like, I guess Man City, Chelsea, all those, they rake in that, they have huge academy pools, and it's 1 out of 100 that seems to actually break through into the first team that comes through their academy, and the rest just are, fuel for the economic fire
Yeah.
that is some of those massive clubs, regardless of all of the FFP stuff that's going on. Um, but yeah, I mean, I hope it sounds rude and a bit harsh, but I hope he's not a part of their, like, they don't necessarily see him as their long-term successor, because that leaves the door ajar for us to try and
When he'd only scored one goal, he scored the goal against Norwich, and then he hadn't scored for a little while, but was still playing quite well. And I was like, I'm actually quite happy for him to not score many goals, because quite often, there's such a fixation on goals scored. I'm like, look, if he only scores 1 or 2 for the season, and we go, oh, look, gee, we'll buy him for £3 million if we have to, and then you sort of pick up a bargain. But he's not really doing us any favors in that sense.
No, not really. But I guess it just depends. Like, what? Obviously, we don't want to spend ridiculous amount of money on him, but we took a big punt on Philogene and spent $5 million.
Yeah, we should talk about it in a second, but yeah.
and that worked out. That's working out quite well at the minute. And you go, if they're willing to, obviously not go crazy, but you're going to shell out, a decent, maybe one decent fee each season or something, coupled with player sales. And I think, filling the MKM, all those sorts of things, huge attendances, huge crowds is, going to good for revenue and good for turnover. So it's the potential that, maybe heading into either January or for next season, you're going, what, Delap's the one we're going to try and drop some money on and secure him, keep the rest of the squad, or the core there. But anyway, Philogene also sensational across these 2 games, is just really starting to.
It creeps up on you. I mean, I saw the stat that he had the 7 goal involvements in his last 7 games, and you go, that sounds too many. And then you look at it and you go, yeah, geez, he really has. Like, he's just coming on in leaps and bounds.
Yeah, and I think where the first few appearances we were going, he sort of gets into a good area, but then he seems to like hold the play up too much, and it's like he's not really sure what to. But I think we're starting to see, I think Rosini's just, I think just giving him the confidence to just don't worry about it, man. Just like get into those zones and do what you got to do. And, I think especially, the goal against Preston, he cuts inside the 2. Yeah. Just quality, just 2 defenders, double marked. And that's what's going to start happening.
And that's where you need the Lakilo on the other wing to mean that they can't. Well, like they probably still will, but they have to think about both sides.
Yeah. So, but yeah, they're starting to double up on him. They're going, this is a dangerous player. We're going to take out of the game, and
He's still beating them.
Yeah, the quality there for such a young kid is to just go, doesn't matter. Put 2 on me, I'll burn you both. Is I think quality and confidence is sensational. So, I mean, even at this stage, I'd say $5 million well spent.
Yeah, and I think the fee I heard was that the buyback, I should say, for Villa is 15 million. And to be fair, that only gets triggered if we're in the same division. But you'd have to say he's already showing that he's well worth, a 15. Like, you consider how much we got for Keane Lewis Potter, and in terms of absolute goal output, sure, Lewis Potter scored more goals for us in the championship, but I'd say on ability and potential and the way he's tracking, I'd say Philogene's already worth at least, if not more, than Lewis Potter was worth. So it's a crazy position to be in that sense. And what I was saying before the episode started, shirts arrived just the other day, which is in great timing for the episode. And the shirt I'm wearing now is a Philogene shirt. So feel quite appropriate with that, with the 2 performances against Birmingham and Preston. But it seemed like that goal against Birmingham sort of didn't unlock his confidence, because he'd already been performing quite well. But I think in terms of the belief that he can take those shots from distance and he can carry the ball and have those sort of those runs, really triggered obviously the goal against Preston. He had a whole lot of other chances against Preston as well. We'll talk about that game in a second. But yeah, that goal against Birmingham was sort of what we're like, what you sort of not expect of him, but like it's just that sort of end product that he has to his game, which is just great to see him unleashing.
Yeah, I think we've seen, I think, just glimpses of quality at different areas of the park. I think it was only maybe last week we were talking about the wonderful like flick and touch that he off a long ball that to release maybe Delap or someone. But We see glimpses of it. I think pretty much since he's arrived, we've been able to see there's something there. But yeah, it's really nice to see him starting to put it all together, because he is, without trying to put too much pressure on him, but he's like just about, going to put us on his back and carry us into the playoffs, if he maintains, his form, and again, touchwood, stays injury free and all that sort of stuff.
He's Bowen-esque in that sense, and
Mm.
I don't think that's hyperbole to be comparing him to Jared Bowen. I think it's the first time since, I mean, I can't remember if it was yourself or someone else said it's almost like we've got Bowen and Grzycki back in terms
I
of
think that was
Delap.
me. That's what
Was that you? Yeah.
yeah.
With Bowen and Grzycki, it's going into games and saying we've got these two, and that's not meant to be an insult to the rest of the team, because this team's actually quite well rounded, but it's just that those two players have such ability, and sort of whenever they've got the ball, you just feel like something's going to happen. Like, they're so direct, they get the ball, they just look up and they're going towards the goal, and it's great to be riding this wave of just form and confidence, and everyone else starts to feel more confident as well. And as we say, like, it opens up abilities for Lakilo to come into the side and gets huge amounts of space on that right hand side, because they're double teaming Philogene, or if we'll talk about, Morden got injured in this game, but when we get him back in the side as well, Slater as well to come back into it, Tufan as well to come back into it. So there's Connolly as well when he gets back up to speed as well. So there's so much opportunity and excitement about this team at the moment.
Yeah, I think it's just what we've been sort of crying out for, I guess, over the last really probably 6 to 12 months, is just talking about building up a squad that has not just depth, but I guess depth in quality. That idea that it doesn't necessarily matter that Slater, who seemed like a banked on first 11 every week starter, got injured, because we've got someone quality like Tyler Morton to come in, and then he gets injured, and we've managed to slot Traore into a defensive midfielder against Preston and had a bloody blinder. So just it's just a nice position to be in, where doesn't really feel like we have a first 11 and then some subs. It kind of feels like we just have a really solid all-round squad for the first time in a while.
What was that? Was it Ridgewell? I'm trying to think. So that season we almost made the playoffs with Adkins, and then we went out in January and we signed one player, and it was Liam Ridgewell from the MLS or something. And I'm like, it's such a chalk and cheese of like, having these exciting players, but actually, as you say, having that depth behind us to supplement them, rather than you've literally got the two players and then just
did
nothing.
He play one game for us?
Something like that, yeah.
And it was not great.
I just remember Ehab in that January, going into the January, being like, oh yeah, we're going to capitalize on the league position, we're going to make some moves, and then Liam Ridgewell comes in, you're like, yeah, right, okay. But anyway, we're not going to dwell on the Allams. But look, yeah, were there any other thoughts on this game, or we can do the votes?
I think generally the only probably is another, like, I've not slated, but I've been critical of, I think, Seri's performance levels so far this season. But I think the last couple of games he's starting to really sort of get back to where we know he can be. I think he's really strong again in the last couple of games, and I think as well, not as many, or not having those silly sort of mistakes, in those dangerous areas in our defensive third, which seemed to be becoming a bit of a habit. But I thought he had really strong performances. Again, getting forward as well, quite well. So I thought Sari had a really strong game against Birmingham.
Yeah, and I think his confidence is another one that I think, as he's becoming more confident in the players that he's playing with, he's actually playing those passes rather than, as you say, sort of mucking around with it in the defensive third. So I think it's all sort of building on each other, which is really great to see. Yeah. Well, how about I start with you then for your votes for this one?
Please don't. Well, I guess I'll probably just go with the three that I've really mentioned from that, which would be, I don't even know what order. Let's go Philogene, Delap, Seri. In that order.
I've got the same three, and I've gone Delap, Philogene, Seri. Delap's all-round game and his ability to create as well as score chances is so good to watch. When he's running at a defense, his footwork to just sort of wrong foot the defenders and create that space is awesome to see. Really should have had an assist for Twine, which we didn't really touch on, but there's been some suggestions that it was a dive. I'm probably a little bit more generous in saying I think it's one of those ones, I think, where he's already visualizing that he's scoring the goal before the ball gets to him. And so he's sort of one step ahead of where he should be and sort of wrong foots himself. And then I think at that point, he's like, oh, there's going to be contact from the keeper, so I'll just go down. Like, I'm already falling down. I'll just fall down rather than trying to keep his feet. But I'm like, I can't see a situation where you're through a goal like that and for no other reason you just dive. I think he's legitimately slipping. But it was a really unfortunate one because you think if he, almost caps off a perfect night if Twine gets a goal there to also set himself on the way. But Delap I thought was great. Philogene was great as well. And as we said, I thought that was one of Seri's better performances for the season. Well, let's talk Preston then, where quite similarly, and the reason the episode's titled Philogene Go Solo, because it was another Philogene essentially solo goal here. I mean, picking the ball up in your own half and taking it basically the edge of the opposition box and scoring the goal is pretty awesome to watch. I think it was voted the EFL goal of the week, which was great to see as well. Lakilo back in for Morton, who we didn't really touch on, but concerning with that groin injury. Hopefully it's not too serious. And then, as you said, Traore sort of filling in that defensive midfield or central midfield role and doing a great job.
Yeah, I think honestly, one of my highlights from that game is Traore's covering tackle. Covering the sort of on a half counter, looks like they're going to get an easy shot away from in the box, and Traore storming out of nowhere, big slide, blocks the shot. And there was quite a fair bit of that in this game again, which I think was the sort of willingness to throw our body on the line, which we were seeing at the end of last season, I think, when Rosinia first came in, but it seemed to have slipped away a little bit throughout, sort of that dry run of sort of the 1 in 7. But seemed to be back, in full force, where everyone was putting 100% in. They were all willing, to die for the cause, so to speak. So I think Traore was great in that position, which I think, potentially, leaves a difficult choice. Obviously, probably Morton's still, not going to be ready for West Brom, but you go, is that, if he can do that again, and if he has another game there and performs to that, to what I felt was a high level again, then maybe that is his position, where he seemed to be a little bit inconsistent, certainly on the wing, but even in that sort of attacking, number 10 sort of position, he gets in good spaces, but seemed to necessarily not be as influential as I felt like he was from that, I guess like the second 6 with alongside Sari. Whether that is just that he was able to get on, on the ball a lot more and a lot sooner in the plays to try and help, push us on. But I thought he was really good at getting on the ball and helping to start some of those plays forward. So I thought that was probably, for me, that was his best game in a City shirt. Philogene, I think I touched on before, just that sensational, just from where he was in that position, just to go, whatever, I'm going to do this, take him on, burn them both, get to the edge, and just quality finish. But I guess we're also seeing, I feel a bit bad for Furlong. Is the only one I'm like, we haven't seen him at all, and I think he's made the bench a few times, but hasn't got a run. Vinagre's in and out, hasn't really staked a serious claim for the left back spot. Rosinia says he sees Greaves as a centre back, but is playing him as a left back because, and we haven't even seen him. I don't even know if he's any good or not.
Yeah, it's hard as well when you've got 2 clean sheets in a row to justify changing that back four at all, really.
So it's certainly and that, I guess that was sort of where I was getting to, is that, maybe that is, unfortunately, maybe that's the back four. Maybe that's it. Is Greaves, Jones, McLaughlin, and Coyle, because that seems to be the one where we seem to be having a bit of success, and it's
Which is crazy because it's the back four from League One. I just don't understand how, like, we keep trying to bring in players. Like we brought Figueiredo in last season, we brought Vinagre in this season. We keep trying to upgrade that back four, but it keeps reverting to the League One back four, and it keeps working.
mate, it's a championship winning team, back four. Why would you change it? Yeah, look, I don't know. It is interesting that somehow, given the opportunities, those four still manage to consistently stake the claim. And despite, like Coyle gets a lot of flack very regularly from the fan base, about, the lack of quality is that he has the right back or whatever. But I think, in turn, is he the most technically gifted right back in the league? Certainly not. But I challenge you to find a right back who has more heart and dedication than he does. Like, because he broke his nose or whatever, had surgery on it, came back like a week later, and then got it re-broken, and then set out 1 week, came back and has played, in a mask for the last couple of games. So I think, there's plenty of players who would just go, I'm just going to take a couple of weeks and let this recover fully. And he's just like, get me back out there. I got a job to do. We got, and so I really am a big fan of him on that side of the football equation. Um, I think like Christie as a right back, also sensational, and I think offers a lot more on the technical side, much better, with ball at feet, and I think offers more driving forward than like Coyle gets down the line and whips in a good ball, but I think Christie, if he gets in there, then he is willing to take that player on to try and drive into the box, to try and draw fouls and all that sort of a little bit more. So it's such a strange like thing. And McLaughlin, like he's in
We
and
were
he's
talking
out,
about
and
him
he's
the
out and
other,
he's in.
yeah.
Yeah, and he
We
never
were talking
really
about him
does
the other
anything
week, right?
wrong,
Whether
and he
he,
gets out and
yeah, whether his time's sort of up at City because he's just not breaking into the team, and then he's back in.
yeah. So it's a strange one. It really is, because I fully, like, we have tried, and I'm sure we'll try again. There'll be someone else will come in as the guy who's gonna, I mean, we brought in two left backs this season, and we've still got Greaves at left back. So
Yeah.
it is super super strange. But it is also really nice to go. You know what, like these guys who got us back into the championship might be then the ones to to help take us up to the Prem. Perhaps a little wishful thinking very early in the season, but I'd like to think we'll at least be fighting for playoffs. And I think that a, a full year ago didn't seem like it was on the cards in the near future at all anyway. So I think, we've come along leaps and bounds, and the Preston game, who, yes, they weren't in great form, but they were still above us on the table. They'd been, they certainly started the season really, really strongly. So I think a really good, important 3 points, which I think, did that pushed us, have they dropped out of the six now?
Yeah, I
Or,
think
yeah.
we're above them. Yeah,
Mm.
yeah, I'll have a look. But also the fact that it was in front of a sold out MKM is great to see. What was it, over 24,000 there?
Yeah.
We are, yeah, they've dropped to ninth and we're seventh. So that's great to see. But yeah, in front of a sold out MKM, I think it was Kids for a Quid or something like that. So you think it's all about winning the hearts and minds of the kids, and the more games you can win and you get goals like that Philogene goal, which are going to stick in people's memories, it's sort of a perfect game in that sense.
Yeah, just you wonder how many kids, or how many people there went to their first, city game, the NKM, and watched Philogene do that. Like, that is, a memory that will last a lifetime for some of those lucky folks.
Yeah, and then just before we go on to the votes, Allsop as well, I thought deserved to mention. I mean, he made some terrific saves, kept us in the game a couple of times, and you can't go two clean sheets in a row without mentioning the keeper in terms of his performances, and I think he's looked terrific for us.
Yeah, I think, like, Allsop, pretty much since he's come in, like, it was one of those, he came in and we thought, oh, this is harsh on Ingram, but he hasn't, he hasn't put a foot wrong really since he's come in. He's been great. I think there's been some nervy moments where he's sticking to the game plan. They've drawn the attackers in and they've tried to play it out, and you go, maybe it would have been better just to lump that one, because there was a few really close calls. I think across both these games, there was a couple that was, real tight to get that out and get free. But he's pretty good with his feet, and very, very good with his hands. Reads the game really, really well. Seems to have really good positioning. So he's been a I think just a huge signing, which I think even I think I described him as just like, it was like, oh, he's on par with Ingram. He doesn't really add a heap, but he's not a bad signing. I was like, he's a goalkeeper signing, gives us good competition for spots. But in hindsight, he's been a really, really good signing, and I think a sign of a successful season is kind of when you go, we've managed. Looks like we're getting more hits than misses this year with the signings. So
yeah, absolutely. And when you consider that, what Allsop, Philogene, Morton, I'm probably forgetting some. Well, Furlong obviously came in as well, but he hasn't played yet. But those three all came in on deadline day. So you think it's been, what's that, sort of 5-6 weeks now, or maybe a bit more, maybe 7 or 8 weeks. But you think that's them starting to really gel into the side now. And it does take players just a bit of time to get up to speed with the new manager, new players, new tactics, everything. So we're starting to see the fruits of those new signings really developing into the side, which is really great to see. I'll give my votes for this one first and then pass it over to you. But yeah, I can't look past Philogene for the 3. I think we didn't even really mention here that miss just before halftime, which was very typical of us in recent weeks. And I think I went to bed at halftime, I will confess. It seemed like it was one of those games that was going to head towards a 0-0 or a stalemate.
The chat
in any
did
sense.
get very quiet after halftime, I must say.
Yeah, so I was very pleasantly surprised when I woke up to see the result. But look, that chance just before halftime. On another day, a player gets pretty frustrated at that and kind of goes into their shell. But terrific display from him. Just the amount of chances he was creating and shots he was taking, and his pressing work as well. It's fantastic. So yeah, couldn't go past him for the 3. I went Allsop for the 2 for the reasons mentioned. Thought he had a terrific game, and I went Graves for the 1 vote. I think, like we're sort of saying, I mean, he's sitting there at left back and he's not putting a foot wrong, and he's also linking up really well with Philogene. And like I mentioned Lewis Potter at the start of the episode, but it's sort of reminiscent of that, of Graves having this winger in front of him. He can play these great balls too, and he's very forward thinking when he gets the opportunities to, and I think he's linking up very well with Philogene, which is great to see.
Yeah, I think Greaves is his. I think he understands the way Philogene wants to play really well as well, because I noticed that like Vinagre seemed to always be an overlapping run, but you see with Greaves that there's quite often the underlapping run to draw and make that space for Philogene to go and take cut himself down the line and take them on again on the edge of the box. So I think there's quite a good understanding, I think, from Greaves in that part. So that is, just has been, was really nice to watch, particularly just going like, you know what, he's not actually always just taking the space and saying, give me the ball. He's doing the unselfish thing quite a lot and saying, I'm going to make this run in here, drag some players away from you, give you more space because you're the guy who's going to cause some carnage on the ball. So, but my 3-2-1 is similar in a sense. So I've gone Philogene for the 3 as well. For as you obvious reasons, was the man on the night.
Do you reckon that will be goal of the season?
I think what did I say in the chat? Early shout for goal of the season.
Yeah.
I think it'll be. I reckon it'll be in the conversation, but I think there'll be, it was really, really good, but I think there'll be some wonder strike that, pinpoint corner from 30 yards or something.
Two fans goal against Chef Wednesday, for example. Yeah.
So I'm not sure. I mean, it was very, very impressive. I think it's certainly deserving to be in the conversation for, goal of the month, goal of the season when the time comes. But who knows? By then, he might have even scored an even better
Yeah,
goal, and
that's
we'll be
it.
talking about that one. 2 points. I'm going to go to Traore because, as I said, I thought that shift into that defensive midfield position, or working alongside Seri, I thought he had a really, really good game, and I think that defensive slide as the highlight that I thought was, his highlight for me in a City shirt, just despite a couple of goals and some of the promise in attack that he showed. I thought that was really, really good. And I can't really decide on the one. I'm really struggling here because we've talked about Allsop and how good he was, and we've talked about Greaves and how good he was. And I just don't really know. I'm going to give it to McLaughlin. Actually, I'm just going to go out there and just say, just for working his way back into the team and slotting in like he was never out of it at all.
Good shout. Good shout. Just before we do the West Brom preview, we'll do a player review next week. But I figure with the 2 games to review, we'd save the time from that. Although we still managed to talk for about 35 minutes already. I did want to just mention. Obviously, I think it's coming up to a year in charge for Liam Rosenior. I think it was the 3rd of November. I saw someone tweet out that it was a year couple of days ago, but I'm pretty sure it's on the 3rd of November. But that might be the 1 year anniversary of his first fixture in charge. I'm not too sure, but in some ways it feels like it's been a long 1 year because you feel like he's been here for so long. But in other ways, you think, geez, that's gone quite quickly. That you can't help but look back on a year ago or a bit more than a year ago when Shota was in charge and think the club, whilst on the up and very exciting under Ajun, just has this layer of professionalism about it now that I feel like we were sort of missing a bit at that point. And Rosenior has to play a big role in that in terms of how he's come in and set his standards and gone about shaping the squad and been quite direct, I suppose, in terms of how he wants to have the squad playing and operating and being very bullish. I mean, he had his critics and he still has his critics. I mean, literally a week ago we were sitting here not criticizing per se, but expressing concerns about how we were tracking for the season. And he's stuck to his guns and stuck to his strategies and tactics, and it's paying dividends now in these past 2 fixtures. And it's thrilling to have a manager who used to play for the club and has these connections to the club, and you sort of want him to go on and achieve everything he can with City. But look, it's just it's good to sit here reflecting on a year with Liam in charge.
Yeah, I think I saw in one of the many fan forums that I'm in, someone posted there was a stat that must have got popped up on one of the fixtures or something, but it was like most like points collected since some date in 2020, the last season, and it was around when Rosenior came to, and we were 5th for the most points collected in that time or something out of like the 6 teams that they were on that list. So I think I think if anything, or if he's turned us into a somewhat consistent team who's collecting points more often than not, which is ultimately the goal. So I think we're getting that, and we're really starting to get some attacking football, which Ajun promised from day one that we were going to have exciting attacking football, and we we're going to be a team and a club that everyone could be proud of. And so I think it's been I think just generally, like, almost all of the decisions, all of the steps have been made in the right direction and with the best interests of the club and the fans at heart. So it is very pleasant to, I mean, be a part of the club at the moment.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And as we sort of said, the sellout at the MKM on the weekend against Preston's another sign of that and that step in the right direction. So I think I saw something about our average crowds just continuing to increase, and it's great to see that there's that sort of return to the return to football in Hull after a couple of lean years. So, long may it continue. And hopefully, as you sort of alluded to earlier, there's a place in the playoffs, or at least, right on the cusp of the playoffs for us this season to really take that next step and show a bit of the potential this squad has.
Yeah, I mean, I think hopefully, the 24,000, whatever it was, 355 or whatever that were in attendance, finally got treated to a win at home. So hopefully they'll be back next time.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, look, we'll wrap things up with a preview of that West Brom game. Played them this weekend away from home. I think they've won 6 of the last 7 against us, which sort of passed me by. But obviously won the last time out under Rossini. I think from memory, was that the game that Tete scored in? I think it's like his only goal for us. And then did he also get injured in that game from memory? I can't remember. But it was one of those ones where it was, I think we won 2-0, but everyone just kind of went, oh, I don't know how West Brom stuffed that up. Like they dominated the game, but we got the 3 points. But look, I mean, like West Brom, 3 wins in their last 5. They beat Coventry yesterday morning as well, traveling pretty well in the table. I think they've knocked us out of 6th place with that win against Coventry. It's another challenging but winnable game.
Yeah, I think because I think last season when we played them, I feel like both games were really close together. Like it didn't feel like there's a lot of distance between the two matches. Because was the other one like 5-3?
No, the other one was Bruce.
Is that that one?
Yeah, the 5-3 with Bruce, and that was with Shotter. So that was
That was like it wasn't.
No, that was like September, I want to say. Whereas this one was like March or something.
Yeah, maybe I'm thinking of I don't know. Maybe I'm thinking of something else. Maybe there was another fixture clash that was real close, or it might have been a cup and a league game or something that I had with someone that I don't know. I've got something in my head. It's obviously wrong. Doesn't matter.
The 5-3, because the 5-3 with Bruce was like right at the end of our good start under Shotter, where I think Oscar scored like 2 goals or something, and we were still playing well, but we lost the game 5-2 or 5-3, and we went, oh yeah, that's all right, and then like got battered the next few games, and then Shotter was gone.
Yeah. Anyway, I think this game will be. I think we're coming up against a team who's really in some good form, so I think this will be a challenge. And I think the last 2 were really important in just staying with the pack, and I think this one becomes, I guess, like almost a statement of intent. If you can get this, you're winning against a rival for that for those playoff places, who's in form, who's playing well, who's scoring goals. If we can knock them off, then I think really this becomes one of those really important patches of form where you pick up lots and lots of points against teams around you, but also I think just a general statement of saying, you know what, we're not here just to make up the numbers. We're here to play.
Yeah, I mean, John Swift's out injured for them, which he was probably their most dangerous player for the season. But then Diangana stepping up as well as Jed Wallace. I think Diangana got the first against Coventry yesterday morning. So they've got attacking options, and obviously as a recently relegated side just 2 seasons ago, they've still got quite a strong squad. Corberán as the manager as well is a pretty strong manager. But I mean, as you say, I think the last 2 were definitely to get back into the pack, chasing the top 6. This is sort of the game to, if you win that 3 wins in a row, you start to actually put some distance between yourself and 12th. And so you starting to look more at a top half finish, and then you win a couple more, and suddenly you'll get maybe a top 6 finish. So it's a big game in that sense, and it's all sort of on the line for this one. Are there any changes to the 11 that you'd make for this game?
I don't think so. I think with the week to recover, I'd be pretty happy to see them just start how they lined up against Preston. I thought, as we sort of said, we're sort of whittling away. We're sort of slowly figuring out what the best 11 is. And there's a couple out injured, but I think we're getting very close to figuring out that. And I think the midfield puzzle is still the bit that I'm not 100% sure on, but maybe Traore as a 6 is the weird solution, the puzzle piece that shouldn't fit where it does, but does.
Yeah, and it's the same with like I don't know how Tufan fits back into this when he's back up to full fitness. You know,
Play
Connolly,
him as
whether
the
he
10.
yeah, well that's it. Like whether he plays at the 10. Although I would say, I mean, we didn't really touch on it, but I thought Twine's set pieces over the last two games have looked a whole lot better. So, you know, his free kicks and corners, you know, becoming a real weapon for us. But whether, you know, Tufan and Connolly are just sort of players off the bench for the time being, it's a tough team to get into at the moment.
Yeah, and I think that's probably fair. They probably do have to. I still think Twine is the one out of all the signings who's come in who hasn't really hit his straps and hasn't really impressed on a very consistent basis. There's certainly glimpses where he knows what he's got to do and he makes the right call and it all works out. You know, a la that the press against Birmingham, but you know, for someone who came in and he was a free kick specialist or whatever, that area particularly is a bit underwhelming. But I think he's moving in the right direction. I think the last couple of performances have been generally better, and I feel it'd be even though I don't think he's necessarily been performing that well. I think it almost feels like it actually would still be harsh to drop him out of that side. I think it's almost you're almost just going like, why don't change your winning formula? You know, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And for whatever reason, it seems to be working. So I'd probably just because I think Twine was Twine involved in one of those big defensive things as well. I feel like there's one that was Traore,
Oh,
and
maybe.
I feel like there was one that was Twine or something as well in that Preston game, but not sure. But anyway, I'd leave it as is the short answer instead of my rambling. Leave it as is.
And in terms of score prediction for this one?
I am really, really positive and I'm really, really hopeful, but I'm tipping 2-1 to West Brom.
It does seem like the sort of thing where you get on a roll, you get really optimistic, and then the bubble bursts. So, look, I might say a 1-1. I think we could probably get a draw here, but yeah, you don't want to kind of get too ahead of yourself in these ones. So, look, if we can get a point out of this and just sort of keep the points accumulating, I think that's the aim of the game at the moment, and that would be fine by me. We've got some really winnable games at home coming up as well, so I think if we're just picking up draws on the road and wins at home, I think that's fine for the time being. The other thing to mention, I don't actually know when it ticks over, but I know Delap's on, he's one yellow card away from a ban. I don't know when that goes up to, whether it's 10 cards or 15 or whatever.
I think it's the next international break, which is only a couple of weeks away anyway.
Yeah. I mean, given his propensity to get involved, he had the scrap in the Birmingham game, which was pretty similar to his scrap in the Coventry game, which I love that about a player, like when they're willing to get stuck in like that. And, he's won the ball fairly, but then the opposition players obviously try to get stuck in and he doesn't back down. But he does just have to be mindful. And I'm sure Rossini's probably said something to him about, don't get too many yellow cards. So hopefully he can stay out of the referee's book and we don't miss him for a game. But whether that provides an opportunity for someone like Connolly to come back in, maybe that's the way he gets his chances. But yeah, look, it's been a good episode. Always positive when there's two wins to talk about, and hopefully we can make it another one on the weekend against West Brom. But thank you for joining me for this one, Dan.
Look, that's all right. I do have a propensity to ramble a little bit and stretch these episodes out. So sorry about that.
Good. No, that's all good. There's plenty to talk about. There's plenty of stuff that we didn't even touch on between the two games. So there's always more to talk about. I mean, barely even talked about Jason Aquila, who I think's really starting to show himself as a good option in the side as well. So look, if we do go in unchanged against West Brom, it'll be good to see how the 11 starts to build that confidence and chemistry between them. So we shall see. But look, until next time, come on, City.